Hello and welcome everyone to the Heal Yourself, Heal the Earth Global Online Conference. I'm Monique Challis and I'm your host for the event. And today I am super excited to be speaking with Matt Powers. Now, Matt is an author, educator, speaker, entrepreneur, seed saver, gardener, family guy, and he's my permaculture teacher. So welcome, Matt. Thank you so much for being here today.
Having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
And the title of Matt's talk today is The Holistic Self, How to Accept the Delicate Balance of Being. So let's dive right in. I wonder if we could begin with you giving us a bit of a definition, maybe a little introduction to permaculture for those who aren't familiar with the term. And then could you talk a little bit about how you see permaculture as being a healing modality?
Awesome. That's a great question and a great connection too, because permaculture, people have trouble defining it, but it's very, very simple. You don't need to go through gymnastics to get this. It is simple. It's earth care, people care, and future care in alignment to natural cycles and principles. So we partner with nature to take care of ourselves, to take care of nature itself, the environment around us, in a way that provides for them both on into the future.
Perfect.
So it's like a win-win-win,
Exactly.
essentially. And it's what everyone wants. They want things to continuously improve, to enhance their lives, their communities, and the greater world around them. So some people are like, that sounds utopian, but the reality is it's totally possible. And we've got working examples, working businesses that are making money doing the right thing, helping the environment, serving their communities. It's that triple bottom line that we always hear about, that we like see some people achieve. Everyone can achieve it. And it's through using the permaculture lens, those 3 care ethics, and understanding how nature actually works. Because none of us got the actual science education that would give us the ability to regeneratively connect with our lives with nature. And that disconnection is the gap that permaculture is filling. Permaculture is not like some new thing. It's an understanding of who we are and what we are and how we fit into the pattern of this existence on Earth. And indigenous peoples have gotten this distilled in their cultures all over the world. And in modern life, in the cities, in super capitalism, globalization, we've lost this thread. And this thread is the link to our future. Because if we don't take care of the earth, then everything that is people won't be taken care of. Because everything in our economies and our civilizations are based on nature. The soil provides all the food, provides all the products, provides all the nutrition, provides all the health for all the environments that we rely upon. And without them in place, we will not thrive, we will not survive. And as we can see all around us, our health is in decline as we disconnect more and more from nature and our natural selves. I taught in a classroom with no windows that opened, so we couldn't get fresh air. It was climate controlled space. It had these artificial lights. And we're inside all day looking at little boxes, looking at life through electric windows, instead of going out and doing what would come naturally to beings that were raised on this planet. Touching the soil, touching the ground with your bare flesh. And now we've got wonderful evidence. We've got all this science behind like the lipids in the soil, the antidepressants in the soil, all these things that make you feel amazing. We've learned that organically raised food that's grown as close to nature as possible with the most fertile, rich soils using natural processes gives us the best food, which leads to the food being the medicine that Hippocrates talked about in ancient times, that food is thy medicine, let that medicine be thy food. And it seems crazy now when you look at the Twinkies, you look at the fast food stuff all in our grocery stores. But if we can get back to partnering with nature, to living naturally with living soils, with watersheds that have pure, clean water, with food forests and gardens that are filled with nutritious and dense food that we touch, that we pick ourselves fresh, and that we interact with the soil and the whole cycle of eating seasonally,
Mm.
we arrive at a completely different place of health, longevity, mental clarity, and even compassion. There's something really powerful when we nurture something from a seed, or we take care of an animal that's helpless without us. And this is why increasingly prison programs are doing permaculture. They're
Wow.
having inmates who are either soon to leave or are there permanently getting healing, real healing for the first time, because they're able to nurture life and see how tender life is,
Mm.
how they can be that tenderness for that life. And it softens their heart, it opens their heart, and they're like, oh my word, my nature is not this thing that I fell into, this pattern that trapped me and locked me in and took away my freedom, my agency, and likely took away the agency and freedom of someone else.
Mm.
Those deep realizations and reflections come out of an experience that everyone has the right to participate in. So this simple concept of permaculture, of earth care, people care, and future care is a ladder to greatness, is a ladder to meaning, to joy, and it is our only way to a viable future, because we've gone so far in the other direction that we don't have healthy foods. We're losing the forest, we're losing our soils, which is the linchpin to all life. The oceans in some places are dying.
Mm.
The moment is here for us to stand up for care, all care, the whole thing, the holistic care. And only when we can see it can we make those decisions. So permaculture is that lens so that we can actually see the world as it really is. And
Mm.
once we see the world for what it really is, then we can act. And when we do these acts, we heal the world outside and within. And as we heal the world within, we strengthen ourselves, we become healthier, and we become a light, a beacon, a signal that guides everyone towards that path, towards that future. I believe that it will only take 1% of our populations everywhere to influence, 1 out of 100 people to influence the entire world to make this change. If you can see it, you can be it. And we are seeing it more and more, like spreading exponentially. People are unlocking themselves. And it's through nutrition, it's through meditation, it's through self-care, it's through service, not just ourselves, helping other people. And it's through caring for the environment. They're seeing that it's not just humans, it's not just people, it's not just things with 2 eyes and a mouth that deserve compassion and understanding, because the altruism, the sweetness, the care and love that we see that those mammals do, you can see that happening micro to macro. The fungi are doing it, the bacteria do. Yeah, the little land shrimp, the roly polies, the wood
Wood life.
lice,
Yeah.
they form families and walk around in little families. We have to broaden our understanding and open our hearts and allow the truth to come flooding. And it might be some painful for some people that are like, no, animals are the only thing that we need to care for. And it's like, no, all life, the holistic picture. And when we do that, our hearts will expand, our vision will expand, and we will really encounter the holistic balance game that does exist. And finding that balance in our lives is really what permaculture really is about. It's finding that your care versus balancing the care of those around you, both the earth and people, animals and soil, finding that balance is what gives us meaning as humans. If we go too far into the self, we become withdrawn, we become disconnected. We go too far out into the world and we burn ourselves out. There's always this balance that we're seeking. And when we introduce all these permaculture concepts, it shows us so many more things that are in not only our responsibility, but in the gift with us, in the cycle with us. So not only do we have to remember these things and participate in them, but they feed us in a way that has been invisible to us until now. So you start working with animals and you're like, oh my word, I never knew I could care for a chicken like I care for this bird. What is going on here? I care for a chicken. You know, people, it's this deep realization, and it's that holistic balancing act. And it feels good. It feels new. It feels expansive because they're broadening their definition of self. And it may just be a garden, maybe your balcony garden. It may be a pet chicken, but they are starting on that path. And 5 years from then, they don't have a pet chicken. They've got a lot more going on. They're embracing that holistic life, that regenerative life, that permaculture lens has been embedded into who they are.
Wow, that's beautiful. Now, you've mentioned the word holistic a few times. I just wonder if you could tell us, what is holistic? What does holistic mean? And how can we all become more holistic beings? And why aren't we already?
So holism is a concept, is actually a word that a former leader of South Africa coined, Smuts coined. And he's got like baggage that comes along with him because he was an apartheid leader, right? And he was, I think, during the transition period. So there's mixed bag there. But the term is something that he coined that's ubiquitous, that is part of, it's implicit in almost all indigenous cultures, that we are a piece of a whole, that everything, micro to macro, has these holons, these holes that they form these like ecosystems. So like you go down to the cell, that's a holon, it's a holistic whole. You go up to the body, that's a holistic whole. You go up to the family, the environment, the ecosystem. All these holons form these wholes that together, you know, the earth, the universe, they keep going, the galaxy, known space. These things continue and they go down. So we're trying to grasp the whole of what we are in when we talk about what is holistic. And we're also trying to understand its macro and micro perspective of that whole, because it's that whole is part of a section of another cycle that's even bigger, just as the earth is part of its orbit around the sun and part of the solar system. So that's what holism is. And in our lives, being more holistic is living in a way that ties all the elements together. So we're taking care of ourselves, our family, our community, the environment. And that balancing act can burn people out. And many people in permaculture have gone trying to climb that mountain and trying to arrive somewhere. Like, if I just get this design, I never have to work again. And it's just not that way. It's always a cycle. We're always working, always partnering, always growing, always enriching, always learning and adapting. It's nature. And so this holistic understanding is really, really critical for both adaptation and understanding. So in permaculture, we're really trying to understand the interconnections in these holons and the connections between holons. And so holism, our holistic self, all these tie in deeply into permaculture and permacultural understanding.
Yeah, and that's how we really are connected. I mean, we really are all connected, right?
Well, the air that comes out of us, you know, a mixture goes in and a mixture goes out. We actually filter some of the oxygen out, and then we have the CO2 come out. Um, this process is in direct partnership with all the life on Earth. So all the soil that's made out of carbon, that's actually pulled in by the plants, that actually is coming out of us. So we're breathing out future soils, and even truer, we're breathing in and out past soils, which means we're actually breathing in and out past beings,
Yes.
past life. All the water that we drink and we pass has been going on this pathway through all living beings and all living things, from the depths of the earth to the tops of the mountains, this entire time.
And it has
So,
memory. Like
oh yeah.
it carries all that information, and it's flowing through us.
And I think that's also really important to touch upon, because food is information to our cells. So epigenetically, we've got these switches on the sides of our DNA that signal the proteins to be created by that cell. So when we eat food, there's micro molecules that are not destroyed in the process, and they actually modulate our cells. And when they do that, they signal a change in our bodies, and we actually, with our food, can change our DNA. So when we eat good food, we are signaling good things and upregulating our genes when we're eating. And that's why people say you can fight cancer with food. And then the opposite is true. You know, you downregulate your genes by giving it bad information. And so that's why, you know, permacultural food is such a linchpin in this whole conversation. But let's go a little deeper, because people care is something that people don't generally dive deeply into, and it's something that I have been diving deeply into. And this is what we're here for in this global conference. So we need to, I lost my train of thought.
People care.
What did I just say? People care. In relation to the first
conference, into this conference, or
and then what was the
high
thing before
vibe
that?
food, the food.
Oh yeah,
food,
yeah.
the
Signals for the
food.
epigenetics.
Yeah.
It's always this train of thought, right? So I just went too far on that track. So epigenetically, we have these mental triggers as well. So if you think about the prisoner of war, or that Holocaust victim that accepts their fate and says there's no hope, they get sick and die. They do not survive. That prisoner of war that dives deeper into their faith, their religion, their belief, maybe the meditation, maybe working out, it doesn't matter what it is, but they find strength and resilience. And in some cases, they even improve, like Nelson Mandela.
Yeah.
So we have a mental choice that can affect our genes. That is the core of people care, and self-care is the core of all people care. And because you can't help other people truly if you're not helping yourself. And so when we talk about true health, it is both mental and physical. And when we are getting our information from these things, from our mind, our bodies are listening to the signals that we allow to play in our mind. And some of these signals are just playing on auto loop. And unless you turn them off or dismiss them, our bodies are going to continue listening to them and create problems. So we have to manage our minds. We have to manage our food and the environment around us to be beneficial. People talk about how you have to, you know, weed the garden of the mind. It's the same exact thing. You have to select, you have to nourish and feed. And in some cases, you can't just pull that weed out, right? It's not just so simple as being like, oh, no, I'm no longer, you know, traumatized by this thing that a parent did to me, right? That's not so easy to just dismiss. You have to work on it. You have to change the soil that memory is rooted in. You have to see, you know what? I'm a parent now, and I can see in my memory that they weren't doing a good job. Like that was them failing right then. That was them saying the wrong thing. Like I would say the wrong thing to my kid and then be like, you need to go back in that room and fix that right now.
Yeah.
And it's like, whoa. And you change the soil of that memory, just like you change the soil, the pH of that context for that plant, that perennial weed plant that you're like, oh, I can't just chop and drop it. It's going to just re-sprout. You grow with your understanding, and you realize that there's all this depth, there's all this change that can happen, but only when you have this lens of reflection and you have these skills. And so that's why I've spent my time creating curriculum, creating online courses, so that people can unlock their understanding so that they can step into their greatness. Whether it's Unstoppable Enthusiasm, my last book, or whether it's all the permaculture books, where I've written over 15 in 5 years. And these are ways that we can have that health, because, oh man, when you start eating right food, you feel light, you feel loose, and like you got pop, energy in your stride. You just feel alive. In a way, it's like being on vacation. You know that feeling when you're on vacation and you're like, we're on the move, we're doing things. Your body feels like that when you're eating really well. It's just like a baseline. And when you're living there, oh boy, all your other problems, you got leverage on. Instead of 3 people ganging up on you, you just got like 1 or 2. And you're like, oh, I can get my arm around this and wrestle this thing. But when the food, I mean, I really think that food is the easiest thing. I'm a person that teaches people to literally throw seeds on the ground and walk away. Because it's that easy, and it is also that powerful if the soil and the context are set. And it's the same thing that happens eventually with our minds. When our minds are fertile, humble, like fertile humans, right? We're open and we're ready to grow into anything. And the opportunities that come to us become these growth moments. I mean, I'm sure you've heard that, like, when challenges come, we can either let it become something hard for us and difficult and negative, or we could see it as a growth point, as a moment to grow, to rise. And that's really the fertility of the mind. That's really them having that balance of the holistic self, being like, yeah, managing my family and my relationships here and my friends and my garden and my food and my community. And it is hard, but boy, oh boy, is it feeding us on such a deeper level that can't be quantified until you get in there and start balancing. You're like, man, I never realized how important it was to get out in my local community and just participate. You know, whether it's your local permaculture group, whether it's a group that's a faith-based, religion-based group, it really doesn't matter. When you're there to serve, you should just be there and see how you can help. There's a shift. There's a shift in who you are. There's a shift in the context that you're in. There's a sweetening of that soil of life.
Wow. Yes, yes. So, do you have any practical tools or suggestions for someone who, let's say, has become aware that they do have a perennial weed in the garden of their mind? Let's say they have this belief going round and round, and they really want to change it, but they don't know where to begin. What would you suggest?
Okay, number one, I really believe very strongly that you have to stop judging yourself for having those thoughts or memories. You have to, and the only way I think to do that is to meditate. And meditation, people are like, oh, I'm not a monk. But the reality is all you're doing is sitting there and witnessing your thoughts. Whoa, I think that. Whoa. And as long as you continue to just witness your thoughts and go, whoa, I'm fantasizing about that. I'm fearing that. I'm desiring this. I'm dreading that. You just see that your brain is either in the past or the future. Like you're somewhere and you're doing something, and you're like, wow, my brain is here and it's doing this. That's crazy. Why am I thinking about something 20 years ago? And then when you say that, when you observe it like that, another thought comes. And especially because you're not holding on to these things, you're just trying to observe them and let them pass through your brain as you're closing your eyes, breathing in slowly and breathing out slowly. Four to count of like 3 to 5. I mean, some people can't do 4. It's usually 4 in, 4 out, or 4 in, 4 hold, and 4 out, depending on how you want to do it. But when you're doing that with your eyes closed, 10 to 15 minutes in, something unlocks. And you're like, oh, this is easy. My breath is now doing it automatically. And you're like, oh, my body's in an automatic state. And meanwhile, your brain is still in observation mode. You're observing your thoughts. You're observing your body now. You're not directing your body as much. You might be directing your body for a while. Depends on how irritated your body is. If I eat the wrong food, oh boy, is meditating hard. Isn't that weird? If I eat inflammatory foods, meditation is hard because my body's like, come on, Matt. I'm like, I'm not gonna let you do this. No. And so it's you're grappling your body, you're grappling your thoughts. But when you do that, you encounter all the worst things you could think, all the most entertaining things you could think too. Boy, does your brain and body try to distract you. Hey, here's this great idea. I get those all the time. And it's like, come write them down, thinkitate with me. And it's like, I need to actually, it's like, you can thinkitate, that's great, but make sure you first meditate, where you actually do the process of, and this, the way it clears and cleans and organizes your mind is over time, as you recognize these things, you see what's underneath them. You see why they connect in a way that therapy never gave me. I mean, I've been going to therapists, I think, since I was 6. I had to like blocked out a whole early memory thing for a long time until I was in my early 20s. But I started going to therapy really early on, and I didn't know it. And so yeah, I definitely think that all those things were ineffective. The talk therapy thing, talk about why do you think you feel that way? I actually, yeah, I actually remembered that whole process by mimicking them to my brother as a joke when I was 18. And he just looked at me and goes, do you know what you're doing? And I go, yeah, I'm a psychologist. And he's like, do you remember? And he's my older brother, so he remembered. So just crazy stuff. We've all have, personal things that we've dealt with. And so I've gotten to see that world. Early on in our marriage, we did marriage counseling because I just didn't have the compassionate tools that I have today. Because I just grew up in a household without those things emphasized or taught, or I was a third born boy in a household of boys. So yeah, I really think that when we do meditation, we actually address these things in a totally different way, in a way that's way more personal. And telling strangers personal things, I don't know if that's really like always comfortable for people and necessary.
Exactly.
It's like you don't need to talk about your inner demons to fix them. You don't need to be embarrassed to fix it. You can forgive yourself and find the context and redefine it, and without saying things that hurt. What does happen though is you tend to see what really went on and why those memories happened, and you begin to go, you know what, I'm a 37-year-old man. I'm a dad. I'm not an 8-year-old boy or a 6-year-old boy. I'm no longer those people can't hurt me.
Right.
I no longer, am stuck, in that space. I have freedom. I can treat people better than I was treated, and I can help people that have been mistreated too.
Mm.
And so being able to talk to your memory and see it like that changes it. It changes the feel of it, and you transcend the memory into something else, and it becomes a fuel for where you're headed. And that may be that you suddenly have this deep forgiveness and compassion for people in that position. Maybe you suddenly unlock that memory for yourself, and you feel free. It doesn't matter where it goes, because it's always on a progression. I talk about the fact that I had a personality test that continuously changed throughout time, and I think it's a progression. I think we don't have personalities that are fixed, because there are personal realities that are built on our habits, which were built on our habitual thoughts that we allow into our brains. So
Right.
if we're on a progression of greatness, our personalities and our personal reality are always going to change. And I really do believe that it's having that open hand, that forgiving hand, that understanding of where you are and where you were then, and all the other people in that scenario, that only comes through meditation. Um, and Marissa Pierce has great videos on this online. Joe Dispenza's meditation techniques, you can get them on Audible. They used to be available online, but then the person tried selling it under his own name, and that got pulled. So I think it's like $10 or something for the meditation. I do it every morning. I also do Brendon Burchard's free meditation, the release technique, that's on Audible. No, that's on SoundCloud, iTunes, and a shortened version is on YouTube. It's a path. And when you start it, it's going to be extremely difficult, because your body's going to throw, as Joe Dispenza says, everything in the kitchen sink at you to try to convince you. It's going to try to scare you. It's going to try to tantalize you. It's going to do everything it can to get you to get up, to open your eyes, to move your body. But if you can push through that fire, because it will be fire at first that you're walking across, it will be invisible coals that you're walking across, you will unlock something in you. And it is an integrity, that is a resilience, it is a power that leads to a holistic balance that is recognizable, that people will begin to be drawn to in
Mm.
your life, in your work. And that's why I say, these things unlock invisible doors. I know people are afraid of truth. People are afraid of going into these places and opening their hearts, because they're like, oh, it'll destroy me. These memories are awful. And it's like, we're not asking you to talk therapy, right? We're asking you to just witness these things, to allow them to pass through you, to see them for what they are. And the more that you do this process, the more those memories become our strength and our growth. Because only when we allow that pain, that truth in, can our hearts expand and grow larger and have more care and compassion for those around us.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is painful. I mean, we see this is one of the reasons why it's painful to be a parent in some ways, because you see all the problems you had as a kid again, and you're like, oh my word. And if you haven't resolved them, they come right back up.
Yes.
And this is why I think the teenage years are so hard on so many parents. It's not the kid necessarily, it's the mirror neurons accessing parts of their brain that have been dormant, that never healed.
Wow.
And I want to bring healing to those spaces, because I actually see in permaculture, in the earth care side, in the environmental movement, all these things, such deep lack of self-care,
Yes.
that they're putting their pain into their message, and it's painful to hear. And I'm sorry to say that for some people, they're like, I am hysterical over what's going on. And you're like, whoa, I can't off. I like my garden. I like the environment, but I can't stay there in that energy. I can't let you pour your pain onto me.
Mm.
And that's why so many of us, I feel like we have to find our enthusiasm. We have to find that path to joy in the struggle, in the bouncing back, in the revision, in the adaptation, in the correction of those people around us. Because only then will they open their hearts and trust. Like, it's not a time to trust, right? They're not going to open their hearts, as Joe Dispenza says, right? In a time of like fight or flight, they're like, oh, I'm the bad guy. You're saying I'm the bad guy, and it's like, we need to open people's hearts for them to change. We can't use fear. People actually, their brains shut down in fear and anger. It minimizes. They leave the frontal lobe of the higher self. They leave that area of the brain and they go back to the quote lizard brain.
Yeah.
And they have limiting thoughts. They have fearful thoughts and they have angry thoughts. And if they stay there too long, they get locked in. They get addicted to those stress hormones, and they never let go of that. And many of us are there. It's easy to get back into that pattern too if you've lived there for many years. I lived there for many, many years. And so
You're not alone in that.
Yeah, I think many of us have, right? To just survive and keep up with the world. And so I get into some of these patterns sometimes, and I have to like stop everything. I have to start going to bed at 9 p.m. and waking up and really controlling what my mental diet and my physical diet is. You know what I mean? I have to really be careful and be that diligent gardener of my mind, because I don't want to live there. I don't want to live in stress. I don't want to. It's crazy. I watch videos of time periods where I'm stressed and time periods when I'm not. And it's like there's two different people talking. It's like, this guy's smart. That guy knows some things. And he's, you know what I mean? But it's real. Like, my brain becomes expansive when I'm at peace, when I'm in gratitude. And these answers and solutions literally wash up on the shore of my mind as I'm sitting there in stillness. The answers and solutions come to me. And I revealed this morning, and I always hesitate to do this because it freaks people out. But I don't write my books consciously. I literally listen and I write the words down that I hear in my head.
Wow.
So they come to me, these books, and people are like, you've written 16 books in 5 years and you're saying you're not just like pushing? No, that's the way to write
You're
the bad
allowing.
book. I'm actually opening myself and studying the things that I want to communicate in a way that I'm allowing the understanding to distill on my subconscious mind. So what I'm doing is I'm allowing my subconscious mind, the spirit, unknown, all those kinds of things, all those modalities, whatever words you want to use, I'm letting it distill upon that. So I'm studying, I'm thinking about it, I'm reflecting, I'm having so much joy and gratitude as I feed my curiosity, as I communicate these things in joy to my friends and my students. And then I write. And so it's out of that deeply encoding emotional experience, connecting to that idea, concept, knowledge set. And then I listen. And it's through that humility, I believe, of listening. And then I reread everything. I reread things aloud and I listen again.
Mm.
And then I get the revisions I need. And it's only through this process of listening and revising, and really it's like there's a bunch of communication going on right then, right? It's like reflective, it's meditative, it's being open to that still small voice. And as I've improved as a writer, each book I do better at, I've moved more and more into this space. And the last book Unstoppable Enthusiasm. This one right here, I literally wrote meditating before and after almost every single session. And so much of this was written in tears of pure joy and just sheer gratitude. This book came to me. This book is something that I read that like it's like a book I got, and it's like the most amazing book I got. It's one of my favorite books. It doesn't feel like I wrote it, but I certainly did. It was kind of like written in a meditative fever almost of joy and enthusiasm over a 2-month span. And my wife edited it as she was healing from cancer that we talk about in this. And it talks about our relationship in a very personal and open way. And it just was the most incredible thing. And yes, it's the most personal thing I've ever created, the most revealing thing I ever created. It is absolutely my voice, but it feels like this is a gift that I have been given. And it feels like a gift to continue on this path and to share it with so many people. It's now my best-selling book. I've written all these other books. I've sold thousands of copies of all these other books. But even though the Kickstarter for that book failed, right now, on Amazon, online, and Barnes and Nobles, and all these stores, it's just starting to rise higher than all the others. And I really believed when I wrote it that it was the catalyst that would unlock people to allow them to put in that garden, to take the time to go on those walks with their family, to start doing their gratitude journaling at night, to wake up and do just 10 minutes to start with of meditation. Maybe not the 55 minutes that I always aspire to do every day, though I really aspire to do twice that, but that's, you always got to have goals, right? But yeah, I would say start there if you want to start on this path.
So start cultivating that enthusiasm, right? And how would you begin to do that? And how do you make it unstoppable? And does that become permanent?
No, it's a balancing act. There's actually such a good definition in here of it. Let's see if I can find it really quick. So enthusiasm is this brilliant mixture. Let's see if I can reach it. Nope, you're not going to find it. Are you going to find it? No, I'm not going to find it today. But it's this brilliant mixture of gratitude, faith, anticipation, and excitement. That's actually the quote. I remembered it.
Gratitude.
And when we break it down like that, we're grateful for the moment that we're in. People who are enthusiastic we all readily recognize it. It's actually something that we measure in education. We actually measure this in the education sphere, because the teacher's enthusiasm for the subject and for teaching together directly correlate to how well the students learn.
Wow.
So this is something from my perspective as a master's degree in education, as a lifetime teacher. This really resonated with me, and you see it. You see when people get energy from the thing they're talking about or from the people they're around, they light up. We actually can measure these things. We can see it. It's always been recognizable throughout time. They've always talked about it. In Theos means God within, or the spirit of life within. So if you're full of life, you're full of enthusiasm for life, you feel alive because you're connected to something. And that could be your family, that could be gardening, that could be anything. But it's something that lights you up, something that brings your greatest self to the fore. And it actually wakens you up and brings you to the moment. And you're excited, you're anticipating something great is going to happen. So not only are you grateful for the moment, you're so grateful that you're grateful for the thing you're anticipating. And that is actually what faith is. Faith is this such deep belief that something is true or going to happen that you're grateful for in the moment.
Mm.
And then there's a generalized excitement around all of this energy that comes from this, that is enthusiasm. So that's what enthusiasm is. And we can cultivate that. We can focus on what we're grateful for. We can focus on what we have faith in, and we can focus on what we're looking forward to. And in that excitement that is generated from that, there's this great energy that we can direct and then reinvest it into a virtuous, exponentially growing cycle of enthusiasm. So let's say you've got all this energy, enthusiastic. Well, take that energy and then you put it into something that brings you energy. It's like, oh man, I'm so excited. I love permaculture. It's just this great thing. Now I'm creating a permaculture business. So every day I get to focus on the thing I love. And then it snowballs and becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. And there are tricks to this. So the gratitude journal is, and glial cells is a trick to this. So every night before you go to bed, stop thinking about all the things you're worrying about. Write down at least 5 things you're grateful for that happened that day, because your brain takes a snapshot of that day before you go to bed in these things called glial cells. And they take a snapshot, and in the morning, that's the general reference point.
Mm.
So if you're like, oh, the day was amazing, you wake up and you're like, I'm ready for today to be amazing. And if you take a snapshot of your stress, you wake up in the morning stressed. And you do that too much, you become a habit and you become locked in. And it takes some work on that landscape to actually get that out, to get that weed out. So that's the real simple explanation for how to do it.
And you said it's not a permanent place that you reside in. It's a balance.
Because you have to do things to maintain that balance. Just like our muscles are the things that keep us balanced on a balance board. If we let those atrophy and get back on that balance board, we have no balance. We have to consistently strengthen those mental muscles and those habitual muscles. So we have to clear our mind. We have to get, in touch with the things that we care about most, the things that light us up in our life, and then have this deep gratitude for them. And then we can apply that to the rest of our life using that energy as fuel.
Yes, and I think enthusiasm is totally infectious. People are just drawn to that kind of energy. They want to feel that spark too. They want to feel alive and lit up. So they're drawn to it.
Yeah. And I think what happens also when you enter that state and you start reflecting, you see that enthusiasm come back to you. And that again is a magnifier. And that creates that unstoppable enthusiasm. So enthusiasm doesn't happen in a vacuum. And I talk about this in the course. Enthusiasm actually has to be witnessed to be enthusiasm.
Oh, interesting.
And when it's witnessed, it actually reflects back and creates this reciprocal thing. And so whether we are observing it in ourselves or whether we're observing it in other people, enthusiasm is something that is observed. So I really think that when we share it, we magnify it, because, there's the multiplicity of reflection there. Not only do we feel it, we think it, we say it, we see ourselves saying it, we hear ourselves saying it, and then other people are reflecting it back, and we're seeing it, we're recognizing it, and we're recognizing that maybe it came from us. It's like gratitude, humility, joy, all these things that, we really weren't, most of us weren't raised to think about, to value, to cultivate. Feels so good when you actually start to. It's a liberty, it's a freedom, it's a depth and richness to life that just wasn't available. And that sounds crazy. It's like everyone's like, childhood was the time of the most. And it's like, no, actually now is the best time of my life because I actually am here. I'm not checked out and like waiting for a time when my like true self can come out.
Right.
I'm here, I'm free. And that's really what this is about. It's about unlocking ourselves, unlocking our greatness, and starting on the progression, because there is no end to the progression of greatness. There's only a beginning and a path. And when we start on it, you know, that's where life really begins to enrich and deepen in meaning.
Wow. Now, I know you have a beautiful free gift for the audience. Would you like to say just a few words about that?
Yes, absolutely. Just like with the book, there's a free online course. You all are getting the free online course as a special gift today. And so there'll be a link for that. And what that is just going through in detail how I am unlocking my enthusiasm, why these things are beneficial, and how you can do it too. So it's super fun. Many people have taken it. They love it. So that's my gift to you.
Oh, thank you. That's such a generous gift. And before we complete today, is there anything that we haven't covered that you would like to share? Would you like to tell us about any projects that you're working on? And tell us how we can connect with you if we want to learn more.
Yeah, right now, I am just finishing up a whole season of work, and I'm actually switching gears. I've got an online show on YouTube, Matt Powers, the permaculture student. I've got my website with tons of free information, free ebooks, and free courses even, thepermaculturestudent.com. And I'm really switching gears right now to actually talking more about what we're talking about today, about enthusiasm, about cultivating the inner garden. So I'm shifting gears, and there's so many videos, hundreds and hundreds of videos with how to with gardening. I've got free courses for gardening. So if you're like, Matt, I want to learn about more, it's all there. I've got tons of stuff that like that. But newer content, I'm going to be diving more into enthusiasm, more into personal growth, and more into people care. Because that's what I'm going to be focusing on this winter. And I might toss in some things here and there that I'm writing, because I'm writing a really in-depth soil book. So I might get super nerdy every once in a while. But yeah, I'll be focusing on my channels, on my Facebook, on my Twitter, which is permaculture123, about personal growth, about applying permaculture to our lives. And I'm always going to be consistently putting in, gardening and food forestry and design, but mixing in that people care strongly this year is what it's all about. So I would love for you all to participate in that course, to join me on my channel, Matt Powers, the permaculture student, on YouTube, and stick with us for the journey, because this community is continuously growing, and it's just more and more exciting every day.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much, Matt. Thank you for being here and for all you've shared. I've really enjoyed it. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for having me.